Hey students, I just chose to do something a little bit different tonight. Tonight's Sunday night, May 10th. This is our mini message, but it's going to be a little bit different tonight. But first I want to say this, Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to my mom, and Happy Mother's Day to my beautiful wife, and all the mothers out there, our parents of our students. Happy Mother's Day, and so I hope you've had a wonderful day. So just a little bit different tonight. I want to just bring a recap on our little sermon series, mini message sermon series that we've done over the last few weeks. And so just going to do a quick recap of that. And so here we go. Let's just jump right in. We've talked about several things, and I've used alliteration using the beginning with the letter T. This is not in the order they weren't in our mini message series, but we hammered home the point that theology matters. That what you believe matters. What you believe. Theology is not an abstract, obscure theory about the divine, but it's a study of our personal God and how he interacts with us as his creation, how he interacts with creation in general. And so we hammered home this point. Theology matters. What you believe, what I believe matters because it shapes our passions, our convictions, and hopefully leads to transformed lives. And so we talked about a few areas of transformation I believe every Christian should have. So theology matters. What we believe, our trust in our knowledge of God shapes our beliefs and our passions and convictions, and hopefully leads to transformed lives. And hope we find our lives transformed. And we address three areas. Our time. We talked about Psalm chapter 1, verses 1, 2, and 3. And we talked about the difference. The chapter there talks about the difference of those who are blessed because they do a certain thing and those who are not because of the wickedness that is a result of not doing. And so Psalms 1, 2, and 3 talks about a pattern of steps, stand, and sit in places of wickedness. And so in verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3, there's a huge contrast between those who are righteous or delight themselves in the word and are like trees planted by streams of living water versus those who are wicked. Not so the wicked is how verse 4 actually starts. And so how we spend our time. So who and how we spend our time, who we spend our time with and how we spend our time. And so that should be transformed. That should be different for Christians. Then we moved on to our next mini message. We talked about how we think. We used Romans chapter 12, verse 2 and Romans chapter 12, verse 12. And so there's a very popular passage of scripture there talking about we should offer our lives as living sacrifices. That's our spiritual act of worship, and we should be no longer conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind so that we can discern. That's what the verse 2 there says. And so we talked about another area of transformation. First was time, and now is the way we think. And then in verse 12, it talks about we could be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. And I posed the thought that in our quarantine, in our kind of weird state of this pandemic, that we can continue to be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Then we moved on to our next mini message, is how we talk. I used Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, talks about how our conversation should be full of grace, and Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, which was this idea there should be no unwholesome talk coming out of our mouths, but everything should be to build up those who hear according to their need and to benefit those who listen. And so 3 areas of transformation we addressed here. So our theology matters because our beliefs shape our passions and convictions, and our passions and convictions about God should lead to transformed lives. Transformed in the way we spend our time, the way we think, the way we talk. And the other mini message that I shared, was this idea of and I can remember I got really up close to the camera, we should be sharing our testimony. Our testimony is this as Christians, should be this as Christians. You with me? That because of the wonderful sacrifice that Jesus did for us, because he chose as a sinless sacrifice to go to the cross, to bear the punishment for our sin, to conquer death, and by our faith in his finished work of the cross, that we could have salvation, we could have redemption. Our testimony is this: our unique story, having the incredible story of God's redeeming love woven together, of how he transformed me so that I can think, I can spend my time, I can talk, I can live, I can love, I can work, and I can worship differently. That's the story that has to be shared. And so this is a different, not mini message about a simple topic, but a recap of where we've gone over the last few mini messages. Again, I want to say Happy Mother's Day, and I hope you tune in. Hope as you've tuned into this video, that this recap just gets you thinking about some of the things that we've talked about so far. That Christians, we have to spend our time, we have to think, we have to talk very differently. And we have a testimony that has to be shared because God has transformed us closer into His image. And we've experienced something in God that the world doesn't offer. And so we have got to be sharing our testimony. As we share our testimony, we may come into contact with individuals, with people who want to know more about what we believe. And so our theology matters, what we believe matters, because we've got to be, as the Bible would challenge us, be ready to give an answer when the world asks questions. Our theology matters. Our lives, the transformed life because of our transformed lives because of the work of Jesus Christ and the power of God's redeeming love has to be shared. And if we'll have our testimony, and hear me, if we'll have our testimony saying one thing and our lives being lived in a transformed way saying the same thing, then as we share our story, as we share our testimony, then God will work incredibly. Because there's nothing like the redeeming love of Christ. And nothing can bring validity to the redeeming love of Christ and His story in people's lives around us more so than when they see us live transformed lives ourselves. And so we've got to be different. We've got to be set apart. We've got to be pursuing holiness, as the Bible would say in many cases. So students, are you sharing your testimony? And is the world around you, are your peers, are your parents, are your siblings, is the people around you, are they seeing a transformed life? Love you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this little mini message, little sermon series. So what I want to be doing next is in contact with you. I'm going to be asking you, will you be willing to sit down and share your testimony? Maybe have a little short on-camera interview talking about how God has worked in your life, what He's doing now. And so I've gotten personal. I did get personal. And now I'm going to ask if you will step up to the plate, if you will be willing to share your testimony. So maybe for people in the youth group who may be tired of hearing from me, can hear from you. And so I hope you're begin to pray about, hope you're willing to do that, and we'll begin to pray about stepping up to and sharing, as I ask, maybe sharing your testimony. Hope you've enjoyed this sermon series, little mini message series that we've done, and I hope to be in touch with you soon and maybe getting some of these on-camera little interviews and sharing your testimony set up. And we'll talk to you soon. I love you guys. I do miss you. I really do. And hope we'll have some answers for what our next few months of summer student ministry looks like soon. That's the plan at least. And I'll be in touch and communicate those once we have a little clearer picture of where we're going. We'll talk soon.